What if real strength was not in your roar, but in your ability to listen? In a vast, golden savannah lived a magnificent lion, renowned throughout the land for his earth-shaking, powerful roar. Whenever he let out his mighty call, a hush would fall over the plains. Animals would scatter in fear, and it seemed as if even the wind itself would change direction, moving away from the source of such overwhelming sound. He was the undisputed king, his power echoing from the highest peaks to the lowest valleys. His roar was a symbol of his authority, a declaration of his dominance over all he surveyed. The other animals respected this power, but it was a respect born of fear, not of admiration. They kept their distance, always wary, always on alert for the next thunderous proclamation from their king. The lion stood tall, his mane catching the light of the African sun, a solitary figure of immense strength. He felt the power thrumming through his very being, a king in his castle of grass and sky. Yet, a strange and unsettling feeling began to creep into his heart. One day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, the lion noticed something peculiar. The more he roared, asserting his dominance, the quieter the savannah became. The birds stopped singing, the insect ceased their chirping, and the herds moved further and further away. The more I roar, he thought to himself, a flicker of loneliness in his golden eyes, the less anyone comes near me. He was undeniably strong, the most powerful creature for miles around, but he was also profoundly alone. The silence that followed his roars was no longer a sign of respect. It was a sign of his isolation. His strength had built walls, not bridges, and he was the only inhabitant of his lonely kingdom. A few days later, while patrolling his territory near the winding river, the lion's sharp eyes caught a commotion. Two young animals, a zebra and a gazelle, were arguing heatedly by the water's edge. Their voices were high with distress, their movements agitated. The lion's initial impulse was to assert his authority, to end their squabble with a single, deafening roar. I will roar and stop them, he decided, tensing his powerful muscles, ready to unleash his voice. But then, for a reason he couldn't quite explain, he stopped. He paused, his body relaxing. Instead of revealing himself, he stayed hidden behind a thicket of acacia trees. His ears pricked, and for the first time in a long time, he simply listened. He chose to observe, to understand, rather than to command. This small act of restraint felt unfamiliar, yet strangely compelling. As he listened intently, the lion's assumptions began to crumble. The zebra and the gazelle weren't fighting over territory or status. Their argument was not about power or pride. Their voices were filled with a deep-seated anxiety. They were scared. They spoke of the shrinking waterhole, the sparse grazing, and the ominous signs of the coming dry season. They worried about their families, about survival, about the uncertainty of the future. The lion's perspective shifted dramatically. He had always seen defiance and disobedience in such disputes. Now, he saw something entirely different. He realized their problem wasn't a challenge to his rule. It was a desperate cry of fear. Their conflict was a symptom of a much larger, shared problem that affected them all, including him. That evening, a thoughtful and changed lion climbed to the top of his favorite hill, a familiar stage for his nightly pronouncements. As dusk settled, the animals of the savannah began to gather below their usual routine. They braced themselves, expecting the customary thunderous roar that would shake the ground and remind them of their place. They anticipated the display of raw power that defined their king. But tonight was different. The roar never came. Instead, the lion looked out over the assembled creatures, his gaze calm and steady. In a voice that was soft, yet carried clearly on the evening breeze, he spoke words they had never heard from him before. "Tell me what you feel." It was not a command. It was an invitation. A stunned silence fell over the savannah. The animals looked at each other, confused and hesitant. This was a king they did not know. Was it a trick? A test? The silence stretched, thick with uncertainty. Then, a small, timid mouse, emboldened by the lion's gentle tone, squeaked about the lack of seeds. Hearing this, a giraffe spoke of the wilting acacia leaves. One by one, the animals found their voices. They shared their worries about the drought, the predators, the future of their young. The lion did not interrupt. He did not judge. He listened. He listened with his whole heart, absorbing their fears and understanding their needs. As the moon rose high in the sky, a plan began to form in his mind. A plan built on shared knowledge and mutual trust. He began to lead with calm, considered decisions, not with the empty noise of command. In the weeks and months that followed, the savannah transformed. Guided by the collective wisdom of its inhabitants, the animals worked together. They found new water sources, managed grazing lands, and created a more effective watch for predators. The air was no longer thick with fear, but buzzed with cooperation and a newfound sense of community. The lion was still their king, but he was a king who led from within the herd, not from above it. The savannah grew more peaceful, more resilient. Real strength is not only in the voice that commands, but in the heart that listens. Learn English with stories. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.